All right, we are done with fractions. So the next module that we're going to look at is decimals. In this presentation, we're just going to do an introduction before we get into our operations. So let's go ahead and see what we got. Okay, so now a decimal, this is a special notation for a fraction that have denominators that are powers of 10, meaning that they are 10 raised to some exponent. Some examples include 10, 100, 1000, etc. So it's basically 1 followed by a certain number of zeros. All right, let's revisit our place value chart. So when we looked at this before, we looked at everything up to our decimal point. So everything on the left side of the decimal point. We had 10,000, 1,000, 100, 10, and 1. Now we're going to go ahead and add our decimal place as well as the places to the right. Note there is no such thing as a once column, because it sounds kind of stupid, but anything over 1 is just going to be the number itself, so it's not actually going to be a fraction. It can be written as a whole number. So we start off with 10th. Our next one is going to be 100th. And then we keep increasing as we go to the right. So 1,000th, 10,000th, and it keeps going. Now, if you want, there is a quick trick that you can use. The number of decimal places equals the number of zeros after the one for the denominator, or the column value. So what I mean by that is, for instance, here I have my tenths column is 1 to the right of my decimal point. This is 1 followed by 1 0 tenth. My 100th column, this is 1 2 places to the right after my decimal point. This is 1 followed by 2 zeros. 1,000th, we get 1 followed by 3 zeros. And 10,000th, this is 1 followed by 4 zeros, because it is 1, 2, 3, 4 places to the right of my decimal point. So if you need to, you can use this notation as well to kind of help you figure out what the column is. Okay, let's look at some examples. We want to identify the place value of the following digits. So for example 1a, I want to know what is the place value of the 9. And so if we look at the 9 here, the 9 is to the left of my decimal point. It's in the whole number section. And so this is just going to be 900. There is no TH here. Similarly for the 1, it is to the left of the decimal point. It is in the whole numbers section, and as it is 1 digit to the right of my decimal point, this is in the ones column. My 4 is in my decimal points, and so what do we have here? Remember, we have 10th, 100th. So this is in the hundredths column. We do want a TH on that one. All right, let's try some other ones. Let's look at example 2. We want the place value of the 8. The 8 is 2 places from my decimal point. So this is going to be 1 followed by 2 zeros would be 100. And we add a TH. 3 is 3 places from my decimal point. If I wrote 1 followed by 3 zeros, that would be 1,000. And now we add a TH. And my 5, this is 4 decimal places, so 1 followed by 4 zeros is 10,000, and we add a TH. All right, we will need this place value. We're going to use it when we talk about writing numbers in words, and we'll also see it again when we talk about rounding. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going with this presentation. The next thing we want to do is write decimals in words. And so we're very lazy about this when we do this in real life, but let's talk about what it's actually supposed to look like. So first thing that we have is there's 2 sections to a decimal number. We have the whole number part, and then we have the decimal part. So if there is a number other than 0 to the left of the decimal point, we want to translate to words. We want to translate that number. Remember we talked about we never use the word and in whole numbers? Well, it comes up when we talk about decimals. We're going to write and to represent the decimal point. We're going to translate the number to the right of the decimal point in words. We just want to treat it just like it was a whole number, the whole thing. And then we're going to write the value of the last column. So let's go ahead and look at some examples of this. Example A, we have 0.6. And so the way this should be read, let's go ahead and try and break it down. Notice there's no whole number component to this, so we're going to skip our translating the left side. We don't include the word and, we just move on to our number. So the number after the decimal point is 6. And then we put our column value. This is in the tenths column. And you're done. Example B. We don't have anything before the decimal point, so we're just going to work with the number after. And the number after the decimal point is 3. We have 1 followed by 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. That is going to be 10 thousandths. And technically we should have a little dash there. Okay, hopefully that's easy enough so far. Let's try something a little bit more complicated. Let's look at example C, 0.409. So the first thing I want to do is just translate the whole thing after the decimal point. This is 409. Make sure you do not put the word and in there. And then we put our column value. This should be 409 thousandths. We have 3 digits after the decimal point. That's 1 followed by 3 zeros. That's 1,000. And then we just add our TH on the end. Now, if you had put 409 thousandths, the reason that this is bad is because this is telling me this is where my decimal point goes. And now I have numbers in front of my decimal point and after my decimal point. So make sure that you're very careful with your ands in this section as well. All right, let's try some where we do need the word and. Let's look at example D. we have 3.8. So the first thing I'm going to do is translate the number before the decimal point. That is 3. For my decimal point, I include the word and. I translate the number after the decimal point. We get 8. And then we include our column value. This is in the tenths column. So we get 3 and 8 tenths. All right, let's try a couple more. E, 15.01. The number before the decimal point is 15. We put the word and for our decimal point. The number after the decimal point is 1. And my last column, this is 1 followed by 2 zeros, or 100, and we add a th. We get 15 and 1/100th. All right, last one. This one's kind of I'm not going to say it's hard, but it's definitely more challenging than the ones we've looked at so far. But same rule apply. So starting off with, let's translate what comes before the decimal point. This is 700. $46, and we use that for our decimal point. All right, we want to translate the whole thing after the decimal point. What is 309? This is 309. And then our last column value. This ends in the thousandths column. We have 3 digits. That's going to be 1 followed by 3 zeros, or 1,000, and then we add our th. All right, that is our decimals to words. So now let's go the other direction. We want to convert from words to numbers. All right, so the first thing we should always do is just do a quick reading of the problem. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the word and. If there is the word and, then you will have digits to the left and right of the decimal point. Otherwise, you will only have digits to the right. Okay, so we're going to convert the number before the and put to the left of the decimal point. Again, if there's no number there, then we skip this step. After that, we want to convert the number after the and put it to the right of the decimal point. The one thing we do want to be careful about is we do need to insert zeros as needed so that you end in the appropriate column. And our zeros we insert between the decimal point and the number. Do not tack them on to the end. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and try some of these. Example A, we have 305 thousandths. There is no word and in here, so my start to this is going to be 0 point. Now, if you want, you do not have to include the 0 in the beginning. It's more of just for ease of reading. So now we want to translate what comes after. 305, if I write that in digits, this is going to be 305. The last thing I want to check is, do I end in the thousandths column? And we do. Here we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, so we are good there. and we're done. All right, let's look at B. We have 74 hundredths. Again, there's no and, so I'm going to start with 0 point. 74 in digits, it's just going to be 74. And then now I want to check that I end in my hundredths column. So tenths, hundredths, we're good on this one. Now for example C, we have 4 thousandths. So thousandths, remember, is 3 decimal places. Four is just a 1-digit number. So we do need to be careful here. This we're going to go 0 point. I need to insert zeros between the decimal point and my 4 so that I have 3 total decimal places. So how many zeros do I need? I need 1, 2, and now I can put my 4. Now we have our 3 decimal places. So be very careful on problems like this. Make sure that you do end where you're supposed to end. All right, let's try a couple more. Let's bring in some whole numbers. So if we look at D, we have 5 and 22 hundredths. So I do have the word and here. This is my decimal point. Everything before the and goes before the decimal point, so we want 5 point. We have 22. And then I want to know, do I end in the hundredths column? Hundredths, this is 2 decimal places. And we do get 2 decimal places on this problem. So we are good. All right, E. 52 and 9/10. We do have that word and again, so there's my decimal point. In front of the and, we have 52. After the decimal point, we have 9. And tenths, this is 1 decimal place. We got 1 decimal place in our answer, so we are good. All right, last one, F. This one also has the word and, so there's my decimal point. Before the decimal point, we have 70, so that's going to be 70. After the decimal point, we want to be careful. This says 66 10,000ths. So 10,000ths, how many decimal places is that? This is going to be 4 decimal places. 66 is only a 2-digit number, so we need to add in 2 zeros and then the 66. All right, that is words to numbers. Okay, last thing, we got one more thing to do in this section. Last thing is we want to practice writing decimals as fractions or mixed numbers. So we're going to go ahead and just like when we were converting to digits and words and all that, we're going to break it up into its pieces. So if there is a number to the left of the decimal, we set it equal to the whole number. We set the number to the right of the decimal equal to the numerator, and we set the denominator equal to the last column value. We reduce the fraction if possible, And one thing to note, if you cannot divide by 2 or 5, it doesn't reduce. And that's because the denominators are going to be only divisible by 2's and powers of 2's, and same thing with 5's and powers of 5's. So if you cannot divide by those two numbers, then it doesn't reduce at all. Okay? So when you're doing this, kind of think about how to read the number in words, and that helps you set up your fraction or your mixed number. So for example A, we have 0.19. If I read this as in words, this is 19 hundredths. Well, that's exactly how I want to write it as a fraction. My number after the decimal point goes in the numerator, and my denominator is equal to the last column value, 19 hundredths. Let's look at example B. Example B, the number after the decimal point is 7. We do not have to put all of those zeros. We can just write it as 7. My denominator, this is in the thousandths column, or we do 1 followed by 1, 2, 3 zeros. This is one where we can use that trick as well. We got 3 decimal places. We need 3 zeros in the denominator. This fraction does not simplify, so we are done. All right, C. If we go ahead and write this as a fraction, the number after the decimal point, my 225, goes on top. On bottom, we get 1,000. Again, we have 3 digits here after the decimal point, so I want 3 zeros in my denominator. Now this does simplify. Depending on how much you want to work on this, you can start with 5. I can divide both of these by 5. $225 divided by 5 is 45 over 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. I can divide further. Both of these are still divisible by 5. And if we divide by 5, we get 9. 200 divided by 5 is 40. And 9 over 40, this is the simplified fraction. Now if you want, you can just worry about the 2's and the 5's. This one is actually divisible by 25, and so if you want to go up a little higher, you can do that as well. But the base case is that 2's and 5's are what we really care about. All right, let's try some examples that involve the whole numbers. D. If we look at D, we have 12.21. So we have our whole number is 12. In our decimal, it's also going to be the whole number in our fraction or our mixed number. My numerator is 21. And my denominator is going to be 100. We have 2 decimal places, so I want 2 zeros in my fraction. 21 is not divisible by 2 or 5, so this is simplified. All right, let's try E, 12.6. 12 is my whole number. My numerator is 6. I have one digit after the decimal point, so I want 1 followed by 1 0. We can simplify. 6 and 10 are both divisible by 2. And so we get 12 and 3/5. This is simplified now. All right, a couple more. F. My whole number is 3. My numerator is 5. And my denominator, I have 2 decimal places, so I want 1 followed by 2 zeros. 5 and 100 are both divisible by 5, so let's divide by 5. And we get 3 and 1/20. And we're done. Now, these are just some basic ones, so now let's look at some nasty ones and realize that they are not really that nasty. So if we look at G, same thing as before, my whole number is 4. The number after the decimal point is 99, so that's going to go on top. And on the bottom, we have 4 decimal places, so I want 1 followed by 4 zeros. 99 is not divisible by 2 or 5, and so this is simplified. It does not simplify any further than this. All right, example H. We have 1 in front of the decimal point, that's my whole number. After the decimal point, we have 3717. That goes in the numerator. We have 4 decimal places, so I want 1 followed by 4 zeros in the denominator. All right, 3,717 is not divisible by 2 or 5, and so this does not simplify further. All right, last one. My whole number is 420. My numerator is 802. We have 4 decimal places, so we want 1 followed by 4 zeros in the denominator. Now, is 802 divisible by 2 or 5? It is. So we do need to simplify. It is divisible by 2, so we're going to divide top and bottom by 2. We bring over our whole number. 802 divided by 2 is 401. And 10,000 divided by 2 is 5,000. And you're done. 401 is not divisible by 2 or 5, and so this does not simplify down any further. All right, that takes care of our introduction to decimals. So go ahead, complete the homework, and then we will get into our operations next.